Thank you for being with us. Now let's get the show started. Airlines have warned of possible flight disruptions in the coming days because of a scarcity of aviation fuel. The shortage of foreign currency, coupled with rising oil costs, of course, has lifted prices of aviation fuel to as high as 607 naira per litre.
Whoa.
At some airports in the country, up from about 360 per litre in December. The government doesn't regulate the price of aviation fuel, of course, because that, as well as diesel, has been deregulated. So some airlines actually doubled ticket prices last month to cover the rising costs of operations. Meanwhile, airline operators have alleged that some marketers are hoarding aviation fuel, also known as Jet A1. And that's where I'm going to take off this morning. We have Dr. Thomas Ogungbangwe, Aviation Fuel Marketers Association. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
He's with us in the studio in Lagos, and we have joining us via Zoom Captain Musa Nuhu, Director General, Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority. Good morning, and thank you for being with us. Doctor, an accusation has been made against you guys.
Is it accusation or allegation?
Okay. It has been alleged that you guys are hoarding Jet A1
and causing artificial scarcity.
That won't be true.
Please defend thyself.
Okay, so that won't be true. I mean, I can tell you without even making any inquiry from anybody that there is no reason that any aviation fuel marketing company will be holding fuel. I can say it without even making any inquiry anywhere, because we are socially responsible, and of course, I mean, these are ethical companies. Nobody would do that.
Doc.
If anybody is not giving fuel to maybe any airline, then you need to check the relationship between the airline and the aviation fuel marketing company.
Is there a scarcity of Jet A1?
Yes, there is.
But that's not the information that the NNPC is giving.
No, NNPC is making effort to be able to, you know, come in between, like intervention. So, but of course, I mean, just like we know that aviation fuel is not produced in Nigeria, it has to be brought in. And of course, you need to bring it in using foreign exchange.
The information, the last information, my apologies for breaking in. The last information we have was that the authorities say we have at least 30-something days supply of fuel. So consequently, there is no reason for any scarcity whatsoever.
Yeah, so, but you know that these products also have dual purpose. Is a homologous member of dual purpose kerosene, which can also be used as household. The same thing that even the government of NNPC may be bringing in, as much as we are trying to drive it towards the flying habit. I mean, the entire of the masses is also trying to drive it towards household use.
Doc, are you saying that Jet A1 is equal to kerosene? Is that what you're saying?
They're in the same chemistry.
No.
Their family is called dual purpose kerosene. So you can use it as household kerosene or aviation turbine kerosene based on the use.
I can use Jet A1 in my kerosene stove in my house?
Yeah, exactly, ma'am.
Whoa.
I insist.
Okay. Why is it not then therefore called kerosene, so that we'll know that they are one and the same thing?
It is called kerosene.
It is kerosene.
Huh?
ATK.
Yeah, aviation turbine kerosene.
Jet A1 fuel.
But the handling is different. The handling is extremely very different. It's just like you have a flour. You can make a donut out of it. I can make a buns. You can do a cake. You can make a bread out of it, but they are from the same flour. So it's just, they have the same kind of chemistry in their thermometric chain.
Okay. Captain Nuhu, if you can hear me, maybe you want to first of all tell us, what the state of affairs is from your end, because the last information we heard was that NCAA was going to suspend airline operations in Nigeria. How far so far? Is that still something?
Thank you very much. I think what I said was a bit misconstrued or misunderstood.
Okay.
And when we said the economics of the air tickets vis-a-vis the current price of Jet A1, which goes to about 617 naira per liter in some places in Nigeria, and the 50,000 naira ticket, the economics for the airline just doesn't work. They cannot make enough revenue to safely operate. And if that situation goes on, and we do our regular oversight function, and we'll find out that financially the airline business is not sustainable, whichever airline we find, we're going to shut it down or we're going to grant it, because once you're financially, you cannot make end meets, you're going to start cutting corners. There's some mandatory regulatory requirements and international standards and standards and practices you cannot comply with. Now that reduces the safety margin. How far can we go with the safety margin? We get to the edge of the envelope and we have to stop before we get out of the safety envelope and have unavoidable circumstances on our hand. That's why we said if the situation goes on and the financial situation of the airlines doesn't add up, then we have to intervene to prevent disaster. Safety is our number one priority. Then you have security and you have economic regulations. Just want to make a comment on the issue of Jet A1 as a kerosene. Yes, Jet A1 is a kerosene, but it's a purified form of kerosene. It's not the same quality as a household kerosene. And it doesn't make any economic sense for the public to use Jet A1, which is much purified, which is much more flammable and much more expensive to use as household kerosene.
Okay. Captain, is the NCAA in any kind of discussion with NNPC, for instance, regarding shoring up supply?
Well, we had the meeting, the Deputy Speaker of the House, Right Honorable Wasi, called for a meeting, and NNPC was there. And as you rightly said, NNPC confirmed that it's 34-day supply of Jet A1 in Nigeria. They even went and stated if we don't import for the next 34 days, we have Jet A1 that can effectively run the system. Now the question, why is that 34-day supply? Mm-hmm. And why the sudden and jack in price? The increase in the domestic price of kerosene is more than the increase at the international, proportionally greater than the increase, because the Jet A1 increased almost 3 times in Nigeria within a short period. And internationally, the crude price just about doubled. So the two just don't add up. The maths don't add up. Something is wrong somewhere. And the GMD and NPC promised to look at it and revert back to the House, to the Deputy Speaker on Monday.
Well, Captain, is there any fact? Well, you said that they have supply of about 34 days now, but then there is scarcity. Is there any confirmed hoarding of, there are allegations of hoarding against the fuel marketers. So has that been confirmed by any authority? Is this something that NCA has looked at and found some people, bridging the supply chain?
NCA is not into the supply chain. So to be honest, I can't really answer that. I'm just saying what the GMD NNPC said, that's for 34 days of supply. I have no reason to doubt him. He's a man of credible character. He said that in front of the National Assembly, and truly believe him. But what we know, he says that it's at 4 days. But the airlines, not only the astronomical cost, they have difficulties in getting Jet A1. So something is amiss somewhere. And what it is, I don't know. I am not going to come here and accuse anybody without facts. But what I can categorically state what I can categorically state is the GMD NMPC says that's at 4 days of supply. At the other end, the airlines are having difficulties getting the fuel, even at exorbitant prices, up to 617 naira per liter.
Okay.
And at this rate, 617 naira per liter takes about 50% of revenue generated by every flight, just fuel alone. And that is not sustainable. The airlines have a lot to comply with. And if fuel alone takes 50% of their revenue, then the economics just doesn't add up. And it's a bad sign for us. It's the regulatory board, it's a bad sign for us.
Okay, we'll come to more of that on how to stem the tide of the suspicions or the fears that NCA has. But let's ask Dr. Kumangbe. You just heard him, straight from the NNPC. What then could be the problem? Do your people have supplies?
We do not.
Take us through the chain. How does it work? Where do you get the supply from? You know, from what point to what point?
Well, based on the information that I just had now, that there's 34 days supply. I personally, apart from my industry relationship, I run the largest spread of aviation fuel company in Nigeria today.
Do you import your own fuel or you get your supply from NNPC?
We used to import, but we are not able to import again because we cannot.
Foreign exchange constraints. Okay.
Yeah.
So all your supply comes from the NNPC?
But we have not gotten any 1 liter from NNPC.
Is it because you haven't requested, or?
We have requested. We also have we have all the relationship, the bulk purchase agreement with them, but we've not.
So what, in your opinion, could be the challenge now?
The challenge is the chain. I think it's the supply chain. So there are companies who do not have anything to do with the wings of the aircraft or putting fuel in the aircraft that are in custody of the product in between.
Now,
that's where it lies.
Are there any of your members who import aviation fuel?
All of us, even including my own company, we all import.
Used to?
We used to import.
Okay. Are there any who are able to now?
No.
So all of you get your supply from?
Well, maybe some of the major oil companies, some of them may be, doing their own importation on their own. But it's practically impossible to import now. Even the 600 naira that we're selling to local, I can tell you, all the internationals are buying 400. Meanwhile, we're getting the product at almost 600.
Slow down. They get it at 400.
These months, I mentioned
Where?
To you, in Nigeria.
Who from?
From us. We're selling at loss.
To the international?
Yes,
Why?
because we're already on contract. The prices were locked in based on the
this happened.
price. But the middle people between us and the NNPC are not making things work.
So what are your expectations from the NNPC now that they have put out the word out there?
The people that Department of Petroleum Resources, the organizations that they've licensed to sell jet fuel are out there. Can NNPC also give the allocation to the people, the organizations that will give it to the airlines? And just like I mentioned, in between, when they get it, they are just commercial people that want to make their own money. And in the middle of it, there are other people who also come to buy this product for other purposes.
These middle managers, are they members of your association?
No, they are not.
You said they buy the product for other purposes. What other purpose or purposes are there for Jet A1 fuel?
No, like I mentioned, the idea is that, I mean, they may, like I said earlier, that they may be in the same family, but they are probably can be used interchangeably. You can use even Jet A1 as an household kerosene.
Well,
And
No,
it will work for it, but you can't use household kerosene as Jet A1.
Captain just explained to us that Jet A1 is more refined and therefore more expensive than kerosene. So why would any
flammable,
household person decide to go and start searching for Jet A1? Because we don't believe it's sold at the filling station, you know?
Okay, so like I mentioned, and the captain only tried to mention that you can't use household kerosene
In an
as
aircraft.
Jet A1, but you can use Jet A1 as household kerosene.
But why would I want to do that when it's more expensive and it's not readily available?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So in this situation that is, even the household kerosene seems to be more expensive than Jet A1.
Interesting. So, Captain Nuhu, you raised some fears earlier about airlines. Your fears about airlines cutting corners because of the rise in overhead costs, and you have tried to mention some of these things. What are the steps being taken? Because they are in business. They are a very, very critical part of the economy, of Nigeria's economy, and most certainly very, very relevant. So, are there any intervention efforts by the NCAA to ensure that those fears do not see the light of day? I think you may be muted, Captain Nuhu.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, that's we keep doing our surveillance, we keep doing our oversight, enhanced oversight to ensure that airlines comply with all the standard and recommended practices and all our regulatory requirements. But the reality, and we have to face the reality, once anybody, a business or individuals under significant financial stress, they are going to take actions to survive, and they have to cut down some expenses and are concerned in the process of trying to reduce their expenses. They might touch critical areas such as maintenance. I'm not saying they are doing it. I'm not accusing anybody of doing that, but they might not fully comply with all they are required to do to keep flying safe. That's a significant concern for us. And we do economic regulations, we do financial audit of all the operators to ensure that they're in a good financial situation to operate safely and make that margin. It's normal. Anybody that's making a loss will cut expenses. Well, the issue, what expenses are they cutting in order to serve? That is a significant area of our concern. And it's putting a lot of pressure on us on enhanced surveillance of the industry. And we just have to do that. And if we have any indicators that the lines are being crossed for financial survival, then we have to do the necessary to take action for safety reasons. Unfortunately, we don't want to get to that stage because, as you said, aviation is significant to the aviation industry, to the economy of the Nigerian economy, and also the challenges we have on our roads. Air transport is the preferred mode of travel in Nigeria. And also the very, very oil industry. If aviation stops, it's a matter of days, the oil industry is going to shut down because they depend on aviation for transportation of staff, equipment, and services to the rigs and other places for that, which is critical to the operation. So we must do all what we can do to ensure aviation survives in Nigeria for the benefit of the national economy in the short and in the long term.
So Captain, at what point are you considering shutting down the airspace?
Well, we are monitoring them. Once we see the figures, financial figures, get worse, it's not going to be all the airlines. All the airlines are different. All their cost bases are different. Some might be able, because of the more business model they run, they might be able to survive much better in difficult times than others. So all the airlines are quite different. Airline A from B, they are quite different. So we look at the figures. We have pointers when they start having issues making certain payments and not complying with certain regulatory requirements, then we take the action. We cannot wait for the avoidable to happen before we take action. Okay. But the point is, we hope this is resolved to avoid getting to that stage, because it's a vicious cycle. If we have to grant any airline, it's going to compound an already terrible situation. So it's a vicious cycle we're in, and we hope this cycle is broken down. I know the Minister of Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, is working on this to see what kind of solution can be found. The National Assembly, as the Deputy Speaker of the House has intervened, we hope all this can be resolved within a short period.
Okay. Now, Doctor, are there any options for getting aviation fuel by your members?
Yeah, the product is not manufactured in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. And there's no refinery up until today that is qualified to do that. Mm-hmm. So it has to be imported. So for you to import, you need letter of credit, you need foreign exchange. That's where we are.
So you have no option but to just sit down and wait to be supplied by NMPC?
Well,
or the other big...
You know, this product was deregulated, I mean, like almost 20 years ago. And we've lived our life. If NMPC removed, you know, their involvement, we would look for a way around it. And the industry will go on, just like we've always done. Mm-hmm. But with their own involvement, nobody can compete with them, because the way they source their own forex through government, no organization is able to do that.
What necessitated the need to stop organizations such as yourselves from importing?
Okay, so like I'll give you an example. I run an organization, for example, which has the largest spread in 15 airports in Nigeria. And we have all the facilities and everything there. The last importation we made since 2019, we have not been able to service all the payback in dollars till today.
Why is that? What happened?
Yeah, because, I mean, for example, we brought in the product when at about 365 naira per dollar. And at the time that we were going to return the money, it has gone to almost 500. So, and even sourcing the dollar through central bank, bid after bid, you bid and you're giving $10,000, $5,000 out of 6 million.
So is the central bank that is not allowing that to happen?
No, I mean, well, I don't know how the government work. They will only do based on what they have the capacity to do.
Well, Captain Nuhu, I remember part of the conversation you had in that meeting with the Deputy Speaker of the House. He talked about, he mentioned something, well, pretty much accusing, if I can use the term, aviation stakeholders of blackmailing the federal government because of the rise in the price. And when he mentioned aviation stakeholders, you were at that meeting. Any idea who these stakeholders are? You have mentioned, of course, your organization is there, and you have also mentioned the NNPC. Which other stakeholders are there that need to get involved in this process so that the prices can come down and then your own necessary shutdown of the airlines would not happen?
Well, the aviation stakeholders, we don't supply fuel, we don't produce fuel, we don't import fuel. It's done by NNPC and the independent marketers. We had the GMDCs who have 34 days supply of aviation stock market, and yet Thomas is telling us there is no fuel. I mean, the two positions don't jive together. What's happening in between? We can only raise the alarm and talk to the necessary parties to avoid this situation. But unfortunately, fuel is out of our purview, it is out of our control, but it's a significant factor that affects us on all what we do. And we can only raise the alarm to the necessary authorities, which have done, to the Minister of Aviation under the leadership of Senator Hadi Sirika, the Honorable Minister of Aviation, and also to the National Assembly. And I hope these two arms of government can, with the NNPC and the independent marketers, we can find a solution, somewhere middle ground where fuel is readily available at sustainable prices to the industry. If the industry shuts down, even the marketers, the oil industry in Nigeria will shut down. That will be total disaster, and we don't at all costs. We must not go to that level. That's why we are seeking this intervention. I, as the Director General, say, yes, I have no control whatsoever in the supply of fuel in Nigeria, but it affects industries significantly.
What conversations are you having with the airline operators along this particular, issue?
Well, we are talking with the airline operators. You see, the problem that cost of operation has gone up significantly, and even with the 50,000 naira basic airfare, it is not sustainable. And it's a catch-22 situation. How much can the industry increase the airfare in order for them to sustain? At 50,000 naira, there's a big opera in the country. Tickets are too expensive. And these airlines, they are businesses. They need to make money in order to run their business and make their profit. How much fare can the airlines increase to the point that they can cover the increase in fuel price and have enough people to fly? So it's really, really a difficult situation. We're in a vicious cycle, as I said earlier.
Okay.
And we need to break that vicious cycle.
Do foreign airlines who come into the country also have the same challenge?
I'm not aware of, I've not had any complaint from foreign airlines, surprisingly. I'm not aware of any. They may have, but I've not had any complaint from foreign airlines, either on the supply of Jet A1 or the cost of Jet A1. As Mr. Thurman said, apparently some of the foreign airlines had already hedged at 400 naira per liter, so they still get their supply because they've already entered the contract. But to your question, I've not had any complaint whatsoever from any foreign airline, either on the supply or on the cost.
Okay.
It's
Captain,
only the domestic airlines.
Captain, we must begin to wind down now. Whereas we all appreciate that shutting down the airspace is not where we want to be, it's certainly undesirable. What would you suggest? I mean, what is the way forward now so that we do not arrive at you shutting down the airspace?
Well, I want to make correction. It's not shutting down the airspace. It's nothing shutting down. It's shutting down airlines that we find are not financially viable under the current circumstances. Shutting down the airspace is a huge thing, and that will be taken at a higher level of government, not at my level of authority. But the only thing that can be done to answer your question is that the problem about Jet A1 supply and the price of A1 must be resolved one way or another. I don't know how, but we must find a solution to provide a Jet A1 readily available and at the costs the airlines can afford in order to have affordable airfares for the traveling public.
Doc, we don't want to arrive there. So what do we need to do not to arrive there, where airlines are being shut down and people cannot move to do their daily, businesses?
Okay, so like I mentioned, the price of jet fuel, which is averagely over 600 naira now, should actually be in the 400s. And that's what all the internationals are buying, even in Nigeria. But we are in the middle that are not able to, get the product. We subsidize this.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because we buy the product in the 500s. Almost like 600, and we're selling at 4 something.
To the internationals?
To the internationals.
Okay.
So, but we must need to do cost plus for the locals.
Mm.
Just before we go, Alera, let me ask Captain Nuhu this question. Would it help to reduce the costs if we reduce or remove the taxes on the tickets? Would that, do you think that can, ameliorate the situation in any way?
Government has already removed VAT on air tickets. That has already been done.
Okay. And
the National Assembly has passed it and it's been signed into law by Mr. President. So the issue of tax and VAT is no more on the air tickets.
It's no more on the air tickets.
Yeah.
Because normally the taxes are more than the fare.
Well,
I suppose that's a discussion for another day. Thank you very much, Captain Musa Nuhu, Director General, Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, who joined us via Zoom. And we had Dr. Thomas Ogungbangbe, Aviation Fuel Marketers Association. Thank you very much for coming to share your insight with us this morning. Sunrise will return in just a moment with another interesting conversation. Do join us.